Yeah, thank you all for joining. It's the April 23rd, 2022 LA Cafe event, and we've got a great turnout. So I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time and joining us today. Today's guest is Ellen Tovit Leary, class of 1964, and has an incredible arc that in her life. She started out in the theater in the theater department at Antioch, and has progressed all the way to being a Broadway star, and she's also written a book that's been reviewed by famous people. But let's what made you choose Antioch, or what made you come to Antioch?
At first, I have to correct you. It's a bit of false advertising, I'm afraid. I am hardly a Broadway star. I did appear on Broadway. I made it to Broadway very successfully and very happily at about 5 different times, and played the Broadway theaters, but I am hardly what you would call a star. And if anybody has signed on thinking they're going to see a Broadway star, I will take the time now. You can close your computers and go about what you're doing for the rest of your day. At any rate, I did go to Antioch. It was a wonderful college for me, mainly because of the theater department. Why did I choose Antioch? I choose it because of the work-study program. There were very few colleges at that time in the 1960s that had the work-study program. I think Bennington may have been one of them, but I'm not sure. But Antioch appealed to me. It was a 5-year program, and because they had the work study, and I had always worked when I was out of school. I had always had jobs, and it just appealed to me that I didn't have straight study, and I could kind of go on vacation every 3 months, which turned out to be the case. And the thing about Antioch and theater is that theater is not, or any of the performing arts is not something you can learn in a book. You have to get out there and do it. You have to get out there and do it. And the work study program gave me the opportunity to do that, because I spent my work study time doing theater.
Very nice.
So that was amazing. As a matter of fact, I got my equity card when I was a sophomore in college. So I was a member of the union, which was hard to get at that time. I don't know still what you have to do to join Actors Equity Union, but I was working on a work study program at Antioch, and I was an assistant to a director at the Phoenix Theater, which in that incarnation was on 2nd Avenue and 11th Street. Now, the Phoenix is aptly named because it's had many incarnations. And this one was a director who directed at Antioch and then asked me to be his assistant. And he was doing a production of The Taming of the Shrew. And I was assisting him. And at one point, he needed somebody to move a table, and there was nobody available. And so he deputized me to be an unspoken servant of Petruchio's, so that I could go on stage and move the table for the scene change. And thereby, I became an equity member when I was a sophomore in college. And that stood me very well. The other thing about Antioch was its incredible professors. In theater particularly, you could not do better than Patty's father, Meredith Dallas.
Yes.
Or Paul Treichler. Paul is his father. Paul Treichler. They were amazing, amazing people who infused you with a joy of theater. And their productions, another thing about Antioch was good because we did these amazing productions. anywhere from uh, Death of a Salesman, which Dal played Willie Loman, even up to the modern comedy that was written by Herb Gardner, which was called, I'm blanking. David, what's it called?
Is it A Thousand Clowns?
Thousand Clowns, thank you. And Herb Gardner had actually been a student at Antioch. Mm-hmm. So we did that, but we had the range. We did Shaw and Shakespeare, a lot of Shakespeare, because Antioch was known for Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. They had a very successful, before I got there, Shakespeare program run by Arthur Lithgow. Mm-hmm. And so all the people in Yellow Springs, Ohio, knew their Shakespeare so well. Uh-huh. And you would do a Shakespeare play at the amphitheater, and you would hear if you'd cut a couple of lines, you'd hear the pages rustling. Uh-huh. From people who were following along with you. Uh-huh. In the script, they were very much Shakespeare people in Yellow Springs, Ohio.
Yeah. Well, the amphitheater was such a great venue. It was still in use in the 70s. It's fallen into disrepair right now.
Has it really? I'm sorry.
Yes, there's some structural issues, with the concrete and the steel. But I believe that, there is a plan to revitalize that, because that was such those summer nights, out in the amphitheater, Shakespeare under the stars.
Under the stars, exactly. Yes. We did it before Joe Papp did it in New York in Central mm-hmm. Park. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Shakespeare under the stars was just magical. Mm-hmm. And I have a friend, Stephen Hendrickson, who is a very successful set designer who went to Antioch my year. And he said he found the amphitheater on Google Map. Mm-hmm. So we know it's still standing, but I'm sorry to hear it's in disrepair.
Yeah, I crawled. I was there for the last open reunion was 2019. And I went, that was my first reunion in 40 years. They're having a reunion this year that you can register for. It's limited participation. I'm going there. I'm also going to work with the work party, but it's so enjoyable to go back to the campus. They did revitalize a lot of the buildings. It's in wonderful shape. It's a great campus. But just if you knew what the amphitheater was back then, and you walk through it now, it's a little bit sad, but there's.
Oh, we built it. We mm-hmm. built the amphitheater.
Really?
My second year there. It didn't exist the first year I was there. We were at what we call the Foundry, which I guess mm-hmm. was still there. Mm-hmm. And we did wonderful plays in the Foundry. But when the advent of the amphitheater was just amazing, because not only did we do Shakespeare Under the Stars, Meredith Dallas and Paul Treichler invited professional actors mm-hmm. from New York and California to join the company. Mm-hmm. So we as students got the experience of working with professional actors. Mm-hmm. I played Ophelia in a Hamlet that was done by someone named Robert Geringer, who was a professional theater actor in New York. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you so many of the others, that Pauline Flanagan, a wonderful Irish actress, and we did Barry
Grinnell, who's on the call. She has, I don't know if she has like a list of performances really? That took place during that time. Yeah, I think that'd be a great thing to reminisce about.
Barry, I would love to see them. Send them to me. It was a magical time because Antioch, for 3 reasons, was wonderful for a theater person. Mm-hmm. One, because of the quality of the classes and the professors. Mm-hmm. 2, because you got to act with professional actors when you mm-hmm. were still a student status. And
What?
three, because of the work programs, because you went out and you actually were in the working
Mhm.
world.
Yeah.
And
So
those
what made you decide to go on to try to be do you prefer actor or actress? I'm never
oh,
quite
actors, I'm old fashioned, Peter.
okay. I'm sorry. You never. There's so many choices now,
I
but
do
yeah.
know.
So what made you decide to be an actress? That's an interesting.
I think I didn't start out as an actress.
Mhm.
Because it was always something I loved to do, but I thought, well, this is not something you earn a living at. And I was right to a
No,
certain
really?
extent.
Okay. I used to say that about film, like, oh, why go into film? You don't make any money. And we've had a couple of guests here that have a very rewarding career in film. So, but yeah,
Well,
not
I
for me.
managed to put together enough in an acting career to make up for 20 years. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that I didn't piece together unemployment claims during
Sure.
that time because
Hmm.
I did.
Hmm.
And I certainly wasn't living very high on the hog. But I managed to support myself as an actress for 20 years, and I'm proud of that.
Hmm.
And what happened was that when I first got to Antioch, I was a psychology major because
Hmm.
I knew that as much as I loved theater, I couldn't make a living out of it. I was in college now. I had to do something
That's right.
serious,
Hmm.
where
Hmm.
you could earn a living at it.
Hmm.
And the more and more that I experienced the theater there and the theater world there, and we had such fun.
Yeah.
We had such fun doing it, and it was such a magical experience. And the
Mhm.
more professional experiences that I had coming out of Antioch, the more it was just a kind of a fait accompli.
Mhm.
I did get a Fulbright scholarship after I graduated to go to the London Academy of Music
Mhm.
and Dramatic Art. So that was kind of sealed the deal for me.
Sure. Mhm.
I studied in London for a year. That was an invaluable experience. And then also made an awful lot of contacts during my time in London and my time at Antioch so that when I came back, I was employable.
Yeah.
And it just one thing kind of followed into the other. Yeah.
Did you have any pushback from your parents about, dropping
Not,
your
not at
psychology career?
all. Not at
No.
all.
Very
My
good.
mother was off in another world. I don't think she knew exactly what I did. She was happy to come to opening nights,
Uh-huh.
and share in the glory. But other than that, she was kind of on her own treadmill. My
Well, I guess
father,
that was covered in your first book, right? You
aren't
have
you?
you.
Aren't you sweet? Yes, it was indeed. And I happen to have it here. It is gold.
Yes.
It
Uh-huh.
is gold. Mother once removed. Yeah.
Hmm.
I grew up in Greenwich Village in New York, and with a mother who was divorced
Hmm.
and kind of one of the first working women who was out there, not going to cook, not going to take care of kids, and going to be a working woman. And she kind of went on her own and did that and left me pretty much to my own devices. But
Yeah, I
thank you
think
for mentioning that. Yeah.
yeah, I think parents did that a lot. Back then,
There were no
it's okay.
helicopter parents.
Yeah, just come
Yeah,
back by 5 o'clock,
exactly.
And growing up in New York City, that was a playground, even as a teenager.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that's the case now with many people. They don't have a chance to. But that's why they should come to Antioch because the environment is the same. You still explore. You might come in thinking you're going to be a psychologist, but you'll end up being something else.
Exactly.
It's a very the enrollment's growing, but I don't care as long as even one person gets some self-realization. That's worth the entire college.
It
So,
is the
but
place
it
for
is.
that.
Mhm.
Totally. You
Yeah,
can try out what you think you're interested in, and it's a great thing to know what doesn't interest you, which is also a
that's
benefit of the
mhm.
work
Yeah,
study
very
program. You can
valuable.
go on a work study program thinking you want to do something and finding out that that's not how you want to spend your life.
Hmm. Yeah,
And that's invaluable.
that is really the litmus test. Go out there and try it, and
That's
see that. no, I don't want to really work in a hospital or an
Exactly.
office or whatever
Exactly.
it is. Yeah,
And
that's
I
very
don't think
valid.
you get that opportunity at other schools so much as you
No,
do.
no. I mean, I went to graduate school at UC Davis, and boy, that is like the freshmen know I'm going to be this, right?
Right.
And they do that,
Right.
and they don't have a chance to even explore anything else. So once again, a very invaluable education that everybody on this call has had an opportunity to partake in. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
so what are you doing now? Are you involved in any sort of productions or
No.
no?
I've retired from acting and
Mm-hmm.
I took up writing, which has been just wonderfully for fulfilling and creative for me.
Mm-hmm.
Out in California, I joined a writers group,
Mm-hmm.
and I they've been very encouraging. And I'm kind of shy, and I wrote this book. I kind of brought them chapters one by one, and
Mm-hmm.
they kept encouraging me. And apparently, that's all I need, like a carrot at the end of the stick. I'm very happy with encouragement, and I'd write another chapter and
Uh-huh.
another chapter, and lo and behold, it turned into a book. And the
Mm-hmm.
book is called The Understudy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a roman à clef because it is very
Oh,
much.
it's a bodice ripper.
I need to quote you for the ad, Peter, but it definitely is taken from my life
Mm-hmm.
as a struggling actress on the Upper East Side of New York, trying to make it on Broadway. And, they say, write what you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wrote what I knew. I knew about this girl who I
Mm-hmm.
call Nina Landau, and I knew how she felt when she auditioned for a Broadway show and she didn't get it. She was heartbroken, and all her friends tried to booster her up, and she ends up playing the understudy. And lo and behold, something happens to the lead character, and she takes over the lead
Yeah.
role on Broadway.
Yeah. Fantastic story. I mean, it's written so well. I
Oh,
mean, I took one acting class my first quarter, and then I thought, well, there's no money in this, like you said, right? And I went and studied science. But you know, I could really feel for the character in your book, and it really gave me a sense of being able to look from the outside and get those same emotions, in every stage of the story. I thought it was really well written in that regard. I really recommend everyone, go out and go find one at your local bookstore or
you
through
go.
Amazon and pick it up. I did in my last email. I found a little place, a place online where you can search for your local bookstore, right? So it's surprising there is a local bookstore near you who can order this book if they don't have it. So
Definitely.
I recommend that. Or you can obviously go to the big bookstore in the sky and get it from them. But uh, it's a really good read. So what does your husband say about Matt? Is he Matt in this book?
David, are you Matt? He's muted.
It's a Romana clay. All
Yeah.
right.
Oh, very good. Well,
Let's leave it at that.
uh, well.
You take from everywhere, is what you do.
Oh, sure, yeah, I know,
All
but
your
I couldn't
experiences.
help because I
Yeah.
knew he was on the call, so I couldn't help trying to bring him into it.
Kind of you.
You're treated very well in the book, I have to say. So, uh,
So far, so good.
so
Well,
far, so
I have to tell you that I had my own understudy experience. If I have time to tell you,
oh, sure. Hmm.
I was understudying in a play called The Great White Hope, which is kind of the story of Jack Johnson, who was
Hmm.
the first black boxer.
Boxer, right. Hmm.
James Earl Jones did it on Broadway. James Earl Jones did it on Broadway.
Hmm.
And we were taking it on the road. and I got the part of a small part and understudying the lead, the woman. He had a relationship with a white woman, which was the crux of his problem during the days of misogyny, of course. And we took it on the road. I was supposed to take over the lead after 6 months. An actress called Claudette Nevins was playing it for 6 months, and I was going to take it on for the last 6 months of the tour. It was a national tour of a Pulitzer Prize winning play, which it did win the Pulitzer, believe it or not, The Great White Hope. And while I was understudying, we were in Chicago at the McVickers Theater on a Saturday night, and all was going well. It was the first act opened and everything was fine. And after the first act, Claudette came down, Claudette Nevins, who was playing the female lead, which I was understudying, came down and said, she said, "I can't talk." Something had gone wrong with her throat. Well, all hell broke loose. They threw my costume off me and they plunked her second act costume on me. They took the wig off her head and plunked it on my head. And I remember it was still warm from her head. And they pointed me to the stage. Now, this is Saturday night in the middle of the play.
Yes, yeah.
In Chicago, not like, you. So I went out there terrified. And the man who played the boxer, the black boxer, was Brock Peters. Mm-hmm. You probably knew him from a film called, help me, David, the
Pawnbroker.
No. The famous one. I can't think of anything. Mockingbird, To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Oh yes.
He played the black one, the black man in To Kill a Mockingbird. At any rate, he was playing Jack Jefferson. And Brock was very shy. He was a film star. And I was very shy, which is my nature. And we never really said hello. We had kind of a nodding acquaintance,
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. The second act of The Great White Hope opens with the two of them in bed.
Mm-hmm.
So the lights went down and I crawled into bed with Brock Peters, who I only knew as a film star and had never really spoken to. And that was our introduction. I had to then play the rest of the play with him, which was a baptism of fire, I would say.
Yes, yeah.
So understudies do, and I carried it off all right, apparently, because it did go all right.
Well, and your dream came true, and fortunately, it wasn't a nightmare, right? So
it wasn't the nightmare that a lot of actors have.
Yes, good. Well, I'd like to open it up to questions to see if anyone has any questions or advice or. No, I did have one question. So I moved down to LA about 4 years ago, right? Which means I only had 2 years of LA. I went to one or two theaters here in Silver Lake area there. What is the theater scene like down here? I mean, are there live productions? Or is there a live theater, or is it all just movies and videos?
For the last 2 years, we've been so isolated because of COVID.
Right.
And I don't know what's going on there now.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've been pretty much stilled. But yes, there is good theater to be had at the. I played the Amundsen Theater in Los Angeles. There's a good theater there.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 3 theaters there, and we haven't been to any of them, I have to tell you.
Because no, I'm really.
Yeah.
I've always liked attending theater.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll reach out to you once things thaw out, and maybe you can,
Yeah,
you
there
know,
absolutely is good theater and in Los Angeles, but we've been so out of it for 2 years now. I wouldn't begin to know what to tell you. I do know that on Broadway, understudies have gotten their due recently because of COVID.
mhm.
Um, there loads of understudies that have had to suddenly take over and go into major musical parts
Mhm.
because so many people are suddenly out
Yes.
for COVID. And so they
Yeah.
have recently gotten their due.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate under those circumstances, but I'm sure they and the audience appreciated it.
And they've been totally applauded by like Hugh Jackman because a lot of went into Music Man, which he's starring in now on Broadway, and he was kind enough to take a curtain call and point out the fact that the understudies had just that day
Uh-huh.
got to do the part,
Yeah.
so they're
Oh,
getting a
yeah,
lot
he
of
seems like a nice guy for
oh,
sure.
a nice guy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right, so I think Jesse, I don't know, you still there? Things sort of changed on the screens here, but I think people can unmute themselves if they'd like to ask a question. And I don't know, Tanya, maybe you can look in the chat and see if there's something that comes up from there. I'm sure somebody has some. Barry, go ahead, Barry.
Hi, Ellen.
Hi, Barry.
Did you ever do any singing and dancing?
No, I can't sing a note.
Oh.
More is the pity. I wish I could. No, and I was very beloved by a very well-known musical director named Hal Prince, and
Oh, yeah, right.
he would have cast me in a minute in a musical, and unfortunately, I cannot sing a note. What can I tell you?
Yes.
Okay.
Some, yeah, some people make singing so easy,
Oh,
and
so easy, and you
for
just
everybody else, oh, it's. I would love to sing, but I took singing lessons, and I really cringed for the person who was teaching me. I ended pretty quickly. It's
I
just not.
always wished I could have sung, and I would have had probably a lot easier way of it as a career if I could have,
Mm-hmm.
because I knew the people who did musicals, but unfortunately, that was not one of my talents.
Well, when I was in third or fourth grade or fifth grade, we had those little presentations, and I remember the teacher pointing at me and say, "You mouth the words." It must have been very bad, or psychologically trauma for me. I
Well,
don't
the
know.
same thing happened to me. I did The Sound of Music at Lincoln Center in New York with Debbie Boone playing Maria. And it was directed by James Hammerstein of Rodgers and Hammerstein fame, and he was wonderful. And I played the only non-singing part in the play, the only non-singing part in the play. But when I got out there in the final scene with all the nuns singing, climb every mountain, I just was singing like crazy, and I was in heaven. And I did get a note from him saying, Ellen, just mouth the words.
Oh, that's great. Oh,
Prepare.
Wonderful. I see, Joan, you have your hand raised. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yes, I have my hand raised to share a little anecdote that was stimulated, Ellen, by your story about how at Antioch you could try something and decide it was not for you and start over doing something else. And there's a paradigmatic case of that, and that I wanted to share, and that's Eleanor Holmes Norton, who's now in Congress.
Yeah.
I had the privilege of being her hall advisor.
Oh.
And when she came to Antioch as a first-year student, she was a pre-med major. And her first co-op job was at Montefiore Hospital in New York City.
Yes, I know it.
Which was a very stressful co-op job, a very high-tension hospital. She slept in my bed in New York, in the Bronx, when she was there. And when she came back, she said, "Joan, I'm going to go to law school." And the rest is history. Of course, she became a very famous lawyer, and now she's in Congress.
Thank goodness she didn't end up at Montefiore. Right.
Well, I thought you'd enjoy that story.
In the chat, I think it's Scott wants to know what the next book is about.
Tell him.
I've tried to write a sequel because I loved the characters of the understudy so much. They became like friends to me. And during the second year of COVID, I was like, well, I want to go back to them. I want them to surround me again. So I wrote a kind of sequel to the understudy because some people were kind enough to give it very good reviews, many of whom said, what happens next to these people? And I wrote a sequel that's not working quite as well. I did send it to the publisher, and I haven't heard back from him yet. So maybe it will get published and maybe not. I have to tell you, it's very difficult to get published these days. I don't have an agent, so this was just a fluke, really, that I got a book published in the publishing world, and it's out there in the world. I can't imagine how that happened, to tell you the truth. I self-published the first book, which is the memoir from growing up in Greenwich Village, and I never thought I would try to have a publisher interested in it. Who would be interested in my mother? She wasn't, any kind of a star of any kind. And neither was I any kind of a star, contrary to what Peter might think.
Oh, I think you are a star. You've been really. I think everyone on the call agrees that you have really, broken the broken the barrier, not a barrier, but so many people try.
So many people try.
It's a very
hard profession.
And just to get
very hard profession.
Put on the stage, and you've had multiple chances. And we'll let Antioch take the credit for launching your career.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right on.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see. Anything? Let's see. So your book, there is in the chat a link to the Hanson Publishing. Is that the publishing house that you? So there's a link in the chat, so you can order the book directly there, and I think that's probably the best way to go about getting the book.
Best way, yes.
I know we've had another person, after doing these LA cafes, I get weird people calling me up or emailing me and saying, "Oh, so you're in Los Angeles? I'd like to get this book done into a movie. Do you?"
Right.
So I'm an agent now, but
right.
Another person, and not in LA but outside of LA, they self-published their book. They had a very interesting story about being an MD on Indian reservations or Native American reservations, and they self-published a book. But there is another publishing house that looks for successful self-published books, right? And then they publish those. They sort of republish them. In a wider audience, and they have a publishing house and they have support. So I guess I recommend, even if you have to self-publish a book, that if you have a book in you, you should go ahead and publish it. I think
you should email me that information, Peter. I would love to have it. I've gotten very good reviews for both books, thank goodness.
Right.
I have very good friends, and a lot of them have had their arms twisted. But anyway, even from people who did not have their arms twisted, they do seem to like both of the books, which has been very gratifying. But yes, if you have that email information, I would love to have it.
I will do that. Yes, they have an office in New York, and they seem really centered on helping. They even have a movie rights department for their published books, which is sort of how I found out about it.
Couldn't be better. Thank you. I would love that.
I
will let you know what comes of it.
What was that?
The first book is every bit as good as the
Ah,
The published one.
my agent, my husband is speaking. Where's my son?
Uh-huh.
Hiding.
He's there, but he has no comment. So
I'm busy trying to get her booked on my show.
oh,
There he is.
Probably shy.
No, he's not shy. He's not like me. He's not shy.
what kind of show does Daniel have?
He's been working for Ellen DeGeneres as a producer for 12 years. Not as a producer for 12 years. He worked his way up from a writer. He writes comedy for her.
Incredible.
And, yes, and now he's in his last throes with her because her show is ending in May. So we don't know what he's going to end up doing, but there he is. Yes, thank you, Daniel.
Did Daniel go to Antioch by any chance?
He did not, because he wanted to go to Connecticut College, which at the time was nearer to us in New York. So
Sure.
we could go up and see all his plays. We could drive up the I-95 and see all of his plays, which was fun.
Very good. Okay, Joan, do you want to say any closing remarks about, your neck of the woods in terms of reaching out and picking people's pockets?
Can I ask a question first?
Oh, yes.
Ellen, are you in touch with any of your friends from Antioch?
I am, Barry. We've just started a whole thing that Stephen Hendrickson, I will put you on the chain, because Stephen Hendrickson was talking about Trotwood, which was where we spent summers before the amphitheater was built. And we have Kirsten Stahl, Kenny Jenkins, Bob Kolodny, Gwen Gunn, a whole bunch of people on this train, and I will add you to it because it's been wonderful.
Oh, good.
The Antioch people are it's wonderful to be reconnected with all of them, and so many memories, and they're all good. It was a wonderful, wonderful time, and we all feel extremely lucky to have gone to that college. And your father was definitely the main reason for all of that. I mean, he was incredible person, incredible actor, incredible director, incredible advisor. He was my theater. It was my advisor, student advisor, and
special person.
All around special person. So that, and Paul Treichler too. They were two exceptional people, and they made the experience so amazing. Yeah.
Good.
I will put you on the train, on the email link, Barry. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you for suggesting.
Paula and I are trying to start a theater and performance group of Antiochians.
I love that.
And we're copying this LA Cafe format. So in June, we're going to start. And Steve is one of the people we're interviewing. Paula's going to do most of the interviews. And she wants to show something, from The Good Wife, and then ask him what went into thinking about this. Anyway.
That's a wonderful idea. Stephen has been wildly successful doing the sets for The Good Wife and The Good Life, and wonderful, talented person. Yeah.
And such fun.
Oh yes, we're all still close, which is lovely. Nancy McLeod is also on that email train.
Yeah.
So it's been wonderful fun. Ralph Lowenstein is on the email train.
Oh yeah.
So we've all reconnected, and it's been great fun. Everyone has a great love for their time at Antioch. A wonderful experience.
Oh, good.
Wonderful experience. And tell Paula that I have her father's recipe for stuffed peppers.
Yes. The Treichler cookbook.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Oh, he was amazing. Lovely to see you.
And you.
Is there time to say something or not? Is there time to say any more?
Sure, go right ahead.
Well, Ellen, it's just been such a delight. I mean, last I knew you, I was in high school. And now I'm 76. And
no, you're not. No, you're not. That's a lie.
No, I was just kidding. But it's just such a delight, and I just love the book. And
Oh,
I was at Trotwood. I was doing props at Trotwood, so maybe
for
we crossed
heaven's,
paths there. I'm not
oh, for
sure.
heaven's sake. Well, I'll
Anyway,
put you on the email chain also, Patty.
okay.
Yeah, it's been great
Anyway, it's
fun.
been
Great
wonderful
fun.
to make
Yeah.
connections again.
Again, it was such a warm, wonderful experience in
Yeah.
college to have that, to have that staple to send you out into the world.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anything better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well,
so Patty,
anyway.
did you buy the book based on this LA Cafe? Or did
Oh,
you?
no. I had read the book before I got on.
All right, good. I was just
Well,
hoping that, I could
my,
advertise that. Go
well,
on the
my,
show and sell more books. But
yes, my sister Barry sent the book to me.
I see.
I gave it to her for her birthday.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Very nice present.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was great.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I read it as slowly as I could because I didn't want it to end.
Uh-huh.
Patty just wrote me that. It was so lovely. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Well, I hope you all enjoy it. I hope you all get to read it, and maybe even the first one, the memoir, Mother Once
Yeah,
Removed,
I want to get
which is my story of growing up in Greenwich Village in the 1940s, believe it or not, which was quite a time.
Well,
And your mother was the drama queen.
She was the drama queen.
Yeah.
I was the shy child, yes. Yeah.
mhm. But
So
do you
there
think many performers are actually shy people?
You know, that is so true, Peter,
Mhm.
and people don't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I went into theater because I was shy and I didn't have to be myself.
Mhm.
I could put on a wig and a cloak and I could cloak myself in some other character and not have to be me.
Yeah.
And it was very freeing. But people think actresses are so, I've lost a lot of my inhibitions over the years.
Mhm.
As you could probably tell today. But no, I was very shy and I needed to have that cloak of somebody else's character to be able to get out there on stage.
Well, I think as we get older, we don't care as much, and my exterior is my exterior, and either, it doesn't matter,
It doesn't matter as much. Yes, we realize that things don't matter as much. But I remember one time I had just played Rosalind because Dal cast me as Rosalind in As You Like It. Now, Rosalind happens to be the second most verbose character in Shakespeare, only exceeded by Hamlet. Not a lot of people know that. And I said all these words on stage. And then we did a kind of a question answer thing afterwards with the audience. And as my own self, all I could do was nod, shake my head. And I had just spouted these hours of words on stage. And in my own person, Dal was very funny, laughing and imitating me afterwards, going, yes, no, because that's all I could manage. So there you go.
Wow.
Ellen, I worked in the box office at the amphitheater when I was Jessica Langton then, and
Oh, yes.
and my mother. Sorry, you say you.
Langton was your father?
Basil Langton was my father.
Oh my goodness, I remember you. Yes.
Yes, and I'm sorry to hear that you you didn't feel good about dancing. My mother, Louise Solberg, did a lot of the choreography there.
Right. Of course, I know Louise and I know Basil and I remember you. How wonderful you have been.
Yeah, and I think, David, you and I may have crossed paths at the Shakespeare Theater. I was just trying to think back.
In Connecticut?
Well, Shakespeare Theater in D.C.
Yes.
The Shakespeare Theater at the Landsberg, I think. Mm-hmm. Weren't you there or no?
Maybe I don't think I was at the Arena.
At Arena. Okay. I just somehow, not Hartford Stage Company. No.
Yes, could be.
Oh, yeah, maybe it goes way back to then.
Very early on.
Yeah. I was there from 66 to 76.
That's where it is. Yes.
Okay.
I thought it was, and then all of a sudden I thought maybe it was the Shakespeare Theater. But anyway,
Thank you.
yeah, it's good to hear today, Ellen. It was really wonderful. I will look and get your book. Absolutely.
Oh, I hope you enjoy it. Thank you
you.
so much. I remember your parents. Yeah,
Thank
Basil
you.
Langton.
Yeah.
My goodness. Yes, absolutely. Okay.
It's fantastic that we made these connections over years, and I find that every time a group of Antiochians get together, there's so many connections and so many shared experiences. It's immediate friendships, and now I find that as you get older, it's harder to make friends, right? But a group like this, the LA chapter, it's so easy, right? I've made so many friends just by hosting these virtual events. So I really look forward to having some in-person events and meeting all of you, and as many, and we're planning on having local events so no one has to travel 20, 30, 40 miles, just small groups in different locations. I think that's really going to work. So as soon as we all feel safe about doing that, we're going to do it. But the next event, Jane's trip here to LA, I think that's a safe venue. Spread the word. Contact me if you have any questions about that. I do want to give Joan just like 2 or 3 minutes, and then I want to thank everyone individually. So Joan, go ahead.
Yes, Peter hinted that I'm a pickpocket. That's the truth. I work for the advancement office at Antioch, but before I was a pickpocket, I was president of Antioch for a while. I'm also an alum. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Joan Stramanis, and I graduated before most of you were born in 1957. And I was president about 20 years ago. But now I'm again working for Antioch and trying to make sure that the place stays open. I hope I have your help in doing that. Let me advertise an event that's happening tomorrow at, let's see, the times are 7:30 Eastern and 4:30 Pacific. So you can find yourself in that time range. Probably for most of you, it's 4:30. We're going to have a seminar on planned giving, hoping that people will want to put Antioch in their will or make Antioch the beneficiary of their various investments. And that's what we'll be talking about. I'll be interviewing Nancy Crow, who is an estate planning lawyer in Denver, and she will be answering your questions about your estate. And we hope that Antioch would be remembered when you think about your estate. We have to make sure that Antioch persists way into the future, and that's the way to do it. Mm-hmm. So please, if you have any interest in that, please contact Peter or me, and we'll get you a link. It's a virtual event, and as I say, tomorrow it's at 4:30 Pacific. And so I hope that I'll meet some of you when we're all in LA together late in May with Jane Fernandez. I'll be there.
Very good. Thanks, Joan. The LA chapter here is really run by just a few volunteers. Some of these people are on the call today. So I'd like to thank Jesse, who's our expert on setting up the Zoom calls and moving people around and setting things up, and Tanya and is Wendy here as well? Yeah. So all of us, and Joan, of course, we all work together very hard to bring these things together. So it's very rewarding to see new faces, old friends here. I do send out emails about these things. If there are too many of them, just don't open them. But it's the only way that we can really communicate well is through the emails. Thanks again for Jesse and Tanya and Wendy and Joan. And thank you very much, Ellen, for taking time out of your day to share your life story and the impact that Antioch had on your entire career and worldview, I'm sure. So
Well, thank you, Peter, and thank you all for being here. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. All right. Till next time, take care.
Thank you.